David was just a youth when God used him to bring down Goliath of Gath, the arrogant Philistine champion. The Philistines were attacking Israel, so David's older brothers were in the army defending their homeland. David was so young he wasn't sent to fight. He stayed home taking care of sheep for his family. But one day his father sent him to visit his older brothers, to take them food and to check and see how they were doing. He wanted to know that they were still alive and safe. When he got to the place where his brothers were, he saw Goliath, a giant of a man, 9.5 feet tall, come out before the front lines of Israel and issue a challenge. He taunted them, mocked them and their God, and dared them to find a champion brave enough to fight him one-on-one. Everyone was terrified, even King Saul, who was the tallest man in Israel and had fought as a warrior leading Israel's army. But David wasn't afraid. He had faced challenges tending sheep and had found that God protected him even when he had to chase off a lion or a bear to protect the sheep. He had a simple love of God, and it angered him that this man Goliath dared to mock God. Because no one else was willing, David told the king that he would fight Goliath. He was too young to wear the armor they tried to give him. It was too heavy. He hadn't trained in using a sword. All he had was a sling and 5 stones, but he was confident that God would grant him the victory. Even though Goliath jeered at the young David when he saw him, David was not intimidated. Here's what he said to the giant. "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us." They ran at each other, and David grabbed a stone from his bag, hurled it in his sling, and struck Goliath in the forehead. The stone fractured his skull and sank in, and Goliath crumbled to the ground. David finished him off with Goliath's own sword. And when the army of Israel saw what God had done, they remembered that they were defending the people of God and that their success did not depend on their own strength. God is the one who gives victory. They routed the Philistines and defeated them. David loved God and knew his power. It can seem that powerful men run the world, that they do what they want to do, and that there is no force capable of resisting these forces. The Bible tells us that God is in control, that he allows nations and rulers to rise and fall, always intervening to limit the evil that seeks to run rampant in the world. Those who realize that God is the only one we need to concern ourselves with, just as young David did, will find that God cares for those who trust themselves to him. When we love God, we have no need to fear any human, no matter how strong they might appear to be. Do you love God as young David did? You can read the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel chapter 17.